What's up, guys? Welcome back. This is the 48th episode, but really it's a first here because we have my very original and first return guest, Emma Duncan. So, Emma, why don't you kick us off? Tell us kind of who you are, how you got into REI, what brought you into the communities.
Definitely. Thanks for having me back, Adam. I joined the SubTo top tier communities about 2.5 years ago. And before that, I was one of those people that followed Pace online for about a year before that. I came into the community because I was looking for financial security and flexibility for my family. Uh, REI really landed in my lap because my husband and I were looking for something that would answer those questions, right? We were going through the most crazy experience, I would say, of becoming parents. Not in the fact that, becoming a parent is already chaotic, but our oldest son was born premature with Down syndrome, which we didn't know he was going to have. And he spent a few months in the hospital when he was first born. And in that short stint of time, we were told that he had a precursor to cancer and that there was a good chance it was going to come back. So 6 months later, he actually had cancer. And I found myself working for the state of Oregon in the hospital, giving a 6-month-old chemo treatments, just hoping that I can keep up with my work and stay awake long enough to take care of my child, right? And so during that time was just like an eye-opening that climbing the corporate ladder and having a child that we were gifted with was not going to be compatible. It just was not going to happen. And then we were looking at the finances that my husband's always worked for schools and churches. And if we were relying specifically on his income, there's no way that we were going to be able to support our family. So we needed change. And a friend of ours was already in the SubTo community. He had me watch, I don't even know what's out there anymore, but it was this ridiculously long, like 5-hour avatar video that Pace put out about all these things that you can, kind of fall into in creative real estate. And he said, if you find yourself somewhere in that video, then you should join the SubTo community. I was already working on legality and managing peoples and processes and helping create events and things like that. So whenever I found out about a transactional coordinator and a fractional operator, I said, that's me. I can do that, right? I'm not a cold caller. I'm not a door knocker. I'm an outgoing introvert and I needed that space. And the top tier TC community provided me that in, right? So 2.5 years of being into this community. I am now one of the regional leaders, the Pacific regional leader for top tier TC. So I get the honor of leading and supporting that community at least once a week, just getting on and giving extra education and support and answering questions. So it's a bit about who I am. I think the last time Adam and I, started this podcast and we chatted, I was a solopreneur, just trying my best to network correctly and follow up with people and get those clients. Since then, I now have a two partners. I've branched out and we created the TC squad. And so we can talk more about that later, but just a bit about where I was and where I am now.
I love that, especially since, like you said, the Avatar videos are out there. Pace has probably 15 hours worth of Avatar training in
Crazy.
Stub 2. It's nuts. But I tell everyone, it's like, watch one of the videos. You only need one and put it on like 2x speed and like get through it.
I
Right.
know.
But you found yourself similarly the same way that, most of us do, right? We watch the video, we're like, hey, I identify with this. Like, I've got some of these qualities. For me, it was integrator because at the time they hadn't fully flushed out that TCs were operators, right?
Mhm.
Like, and I was like,
Exactly.
huh, I could do this. I could be an integrator and I could also be like a connector because I'm really good. I'm the outgoing introvert as well. Like, I could talk to people, I can network, I can shake hands and kiss babies. And at the end of the day, I'll be exhausted, but I could do it.
Exactly.
In fact, so those of y'all that haven't seen it, you definitely should go back and watch the first one we did because Emma and I did nothing but just straight systems and networking and how to get yourself out there and creating blink cards and doing Zooms and asking good questions. And I think honestly, one of the things that I remember you had asked me in the last one that was rather prudent and still is you were like, well, what's one of the systems you use to follow up with people? Because you're always like top of mind. And I
Yeah,
said, honestly, a lot of it is just listening to that little nudge. Like when you get that nudge to like text somebody, like don't wait, give yourself 5 seconds. You know, if Emma's on my mind, I text Emma. If it's
yeah.
somebody else, then I text somebody else. But I have the girlfriend's going through the Avatar series right now. So she's like, because she asked me the other day, she goes, how do I get involved and help you out with this sub two stuff?
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah. So
How
you
far
went from
is she into it? Like, does she feel like she's something that's sticking out to her yet, or is she still just muddling through all the terminologies?
She's trying to kind of sort of figure it out. She's like, I mean, integrator kind of sounds like me, but I'm also a little bit visionary. And I was like, well, baby, it's usually never a clean break, right? Like,
Right.
if you're an outgoing introvert, you usually are a little bit of both. Um, like I was telling James Pecora this, I saw this online and I thought it was funny. It said, like, what do you call somebody that is a leader, but they're forced to be in a leadership role? Like they're not necessarily there. They're introverted, but they're not there because they want to be. And it's an introvertuous. I'm here to help, but I don't want to be. But
Exactly.
I'd
Right.
rather not.
If I
Um,
must, I will rise to the occasion. Right.
well, that was kind of the story of how I got started. Was it was just like I saw a hole. I saw a gap to be filled, whether it be in the community or even in small business and over here locally. And I was like,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna fill that gap, and I'm just gonna be as much of myself as I can within this gap, and just try to see how much value I can bring and how much value I can add.
that's awesome.
But as a
How is
solopreneur too,
that going for you? Like, how have what has changed with you since the last time we were on this call?
I mean, so much. I completed a raise that fell apart in escrow right
Right.
after we did that. That was the big thing that was going on when we did that episode on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
And so I completed that raise. I got the guy 82 grand for his co-living property. I ended up completing another raise and getting a friend of ours a position on her multifamily property that she was helping take down. Um, I mean, so much. I was working with two partners, like with finding funding for
Hmm.
really, really big deals. And we had everything come across our desk from RV park funds to multifamily deals, ground up construction, land development, entitlements. So I really got the chance to look at the entire gambit of everything. And it was it was both interesting and weird at the same time because to me I'm just like some guy that like had started in real estate like 6 months before all of a sudden I'm getting like motel deals for assisted living in California, or like I
Yeah.
said, like whole neighborhood developments or townhome developments, or a ground up construction on a brand new downtown Dallas like
Wow.
multifamily deal. And it was just like in a way it almost creates that imposter syndrome because I was like, who the fuck am I?
I know it.
Right?
You have to fight that, right? Yeah.
You have to fight it. And people just started coming to me anyway for advice, and I would just give advice to the best of my ability in whatever scenario. Um, I ended up getting you a spot on that operator or
Yeah.
as an operator.
Yeah.
Um, and then I mean, we started looking at RV parks, started negotiating a couple of them. Oh, found out how quickly valuations are way, way off
Right.
in that asset class. And I started hosting the New Orleans meetups.
Right.
So
I remember that. Yeah,
now a good buddy of mine and I, we hosted New Orleans meetups and we run the No One Left Behind team for Louisiana.
that's awesome.
So I would venture to say a lot has changed and like we were just saying, I definitely was forced into some leadership roles and just carry that weight with the best of your ability.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I was surprised whenever they reached out and they wanted me to be one of the regional leaders for top tier TC. I was like, I'm honored. I don't know what all I have to give, but I'll show up, right? And I think God's grace, their wisdom. I don't know what it was, but in top tier, there's two of us that get to be regional leaders for a specific region, and Sabrina is my partner. She is a phenomenal TC, and she has a
Mhm.
passion to educate other TCs in a way that it really it resonates with them, and they pick up really quickly. And for me, TC work is doable, right? Like it's something that I can do. But one of the things that I had to come to the realization of, and that I had to educate, or I had the opportunity to educate others, is that there's a wheelhouse. Like you have to find something that there are many things you can be good at. But you have to find the thing that answers the passion within you and like gives you energy. And for me, that's operations, and that's helping visionaries be able to grapple with what all these ideas they have and help them implement in the right process, in the right order, right? And so, like you said, since we've talked, I've had several opportunities to work with different individuals from different avatars as an operator or a fractional COO, if you will. And sometimes they end very well, like with great joy that we've accomplished something, and sometimes you part ways because you're not the right alignment for whatever reason. So um, yeah, it's just interesting that for the Pacific region, I'm able to come in and not necessarily give education on being a TC, but I'm able to say, hey, like this is what I've learned as an operator, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this
Mhm.
is how I have positioned myself and how I create my own personal contracts for this role. And I share that with other individuals that are rising up to fill those same roles in the next year, right? Um, and like you said, like sometimes leadership is chosen for you, and you just have to take it with grace and give it all you got, right? Show up.
I'm really glad you said that too, because like at the end of the day, operations is always what I fell back into too. Like that's my comfort zone. That's what I know best. Coming from being the operator of small businesses before
Right.
even knowing anything about real estate. And real estate to me is so much easier because it's like so you can super simplify your team and you can get away with less moving parts and
Mm-hmm.
have way higher tickets than you could in a small business, right? Like think about like your typical coffee shop. You gotta have like 18, 20 people to run that. And the amount of money you make on every deal is whatever money you make on that transaction, whatever your profit margin is. And it might and on average it's probably 20 or 30%. It's not a lot. So yeah, that $10 coffee seems like a lot, but they might be making $3 at most. So
Exactly. Yeah.
it's wild because that was something I had to go through too, was I had an integrator team, if you remember last year.
Yeah, I do.
Um, we formed it at last Squad Up Summit. I found a couple of key partners, and in a lot of ways, I was able to be in my zone, being the operator of the team and keep and not actually doing the systems, but giving the work to the people that could do the systems.
Right.
And we did one project for one visionary in SubTo before I realized I was like, this isn't even where I want to be,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because the operation side and the system side don't always work well together. And in this case, our systems guy was kind of lying to us. He basically took the money, did none of the work, and ran and just
Mm,
ghosted.
yeah.
And working with the visionary, that one still ended up not parting ways so well because no matter what, I could not get clarification. Like, we couldn't get him to sit down and focus long enough to put very descriptive words as to what he
Yeah.
wanted to happen. It would just be like, "Well, maybe this, maybe that. I would like to go this way, but maybe we could go this other way." It's like, "No, I
No,
need you to decide decisively that this is the way that we're going, and this is the way that it's gonna be."
right. Yeah. It's interesting that you said that, that team came out of Squat Up Summit, because so many good things can come out of Squat Up Summit, but so many things that are not quite hashed out, or not even, they just don't mesh, right? You're like, oh, we had a great vibe together at the event, but we didn't have long enough time to get to know each other to make sure that we work well together. And that was my experience from this last year, right? So just a few months ago, at the event, and from the networking that came out of that, I had two operating jobs that happened simultaneously. Like, they both reached out at the same time. They both wanted to hire me, fractionally, so not full time.
Mhm,
And one of them was a big flop. And when it flopped, I had to battle with myself if I was a failure or not, right? Like, it was like that moment of, what happened? This is crazy. Like, did I do something wrong? And then I had to, like, work through it. And the great thing about having business partners is that I was able to work through the both sides, the angel and devil on my shoulder kind of situation, and work through the process. So what happened was, is that for the first time in operational history for me, somebody said, "Hey, I'm too busy, and I need you to go through the process of hiring an AI specialist, and I want them to help us with this specific project," right?
mhm,
We had discussions about, of course, Go High Level and utilizing Go High Level to its extent, but then also AI automations for social media, right? And
mhm,
training an AI agent, and things like that. So there was kind of like two things on my plate that I saw, like two different projects going on, and I had to find somebody that would be able to do both. Um, Through the process, though, they didn't want me to hire somebody within our community. They wanted to hire a VA, which I was okay
mm,
with. Um, then they had specific deliverables, and I received the deliverables, but I was not able to bring those deliverables back to present to them, right? And that's something that I learned through the process, that I could do better of, or I should have had a different system in place. um, Long story short, they had paid me for 30 days, and we were hoping that we could get the project up and running, hopefully closing within 30 days, but it became apparent that it was going to be a longer process. And
mhm,
as soon as I hired, literally, as soon as I emailed them and told them that I had found somebody, and here's the hiring documents, they fired me and wanted half of their reimbursement, because I'd only worked 2 of the 4 weeks that they had paid me for. And
mm,
that was, there was a lot of education for us for being hired for a specific project. One, tell an individual that if you need me to hire a specialist, I will be paying them and you will be reimbursing me. I will be hiring this individual, and if they flop, it's on me. But you don't get any say in who we hire for this project. You could
mhm,
give me a parameter of what you want me to spend, but other than that, like, you want this done, you want me to do it, let me do it, right? We learned that our contract, it was spot on, and technically we do not need to reimburse that individual because of the way that we worded everything, right? But then we had to go into the side of business of honorability and word of mouth, right? And
right,
will this person bad mouth us enough if we don't reimburse them, right? So that business side of, we don't have to, but will we, right? So there was all these things that we learned through the process. And for me, internally, it was, shoot, like, this has never happened. Somebody has never just been like, oh, I don't want you anymore and I want my money back. And so what was I, a failure? No, I wasn't. I was delivering to the standard, right? So I had to work on myself through the process.
Mhm.
It's always good to reflect on that. Yeah, so one person from Squad Up, right? One experience. And then on the flip side, I met an amazing duo from Colorado, and they've asked me to come on as a JV ownership partner in their business instead of paying me out salary. And they have some amazing things that they're doing, and they're very open. They call me regularly and say, "Hey, legally, this is what I'm doing. You know, can we do this? Should we do that?" Right? So great example. An agent told them, "Hey, there is an arrears in play here,
Mhm.
and we could just loan mod that to the end, and it'll fix all your underwriting." And so they called me up and they're like, "Hey, wait, what's the process for that?" And I stopped them in the tracks and I said, "Listen, that is technically mortgage fraud. And I am so glad that the agent brought it up and that you didn't bring it up to the seller. This is how we can move forward. If you want to move forward with a loan modification process, we need in the contract to state that if the verbiage is used during the modification, that it's keeping the current resident in the house, right? We can get our full EMD back and we can walk away. But if that
Mhm.
verbiage is not there and we're upfront with the bank through the process, then we can move forward. I was like, if you want to do it, we can do it this way, but otherwise, like, it's a no-go. I'm not going to let you commit mortgage fraud. So those are just two different examples of one person that I met at Squad Up, and it ended up not being the right fit. And then another person that came out of my networking at Squad Up, and it's a phenomenal fit, right? And so just like you, like sometimes you have those right relationships happen in an event like that, and then sometimes you learn from it and you move on, right?
Well, and I think that this being your first squad up
Yeah.
was different because that was my squad up experience last year. Was I came out of it with like partners on everything. I had like 4 different teams going all at different times. We were doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. And I was doing everything from, finding lenders for deals to the integrator team to I was talking about doing like business coaching and
I remember
credit
that.
building with a friend of mine, like and then there was another one, oh, an acquisitions team that wanted me to come on and help them with operations. And so I had like 4 different things all going at the same time. And you can juggle those bowling balls for so long,
Right.
but and the funny part is I wasn't the one that dropped any of them. We kept going, and then eventually 30, 60 days in, people started being like, "Yeah, I don't think I can really continue, to work
Yeah.
with you in this capacity." And I was like, "All right, cool." And just project after project after project would just fall off.
Right.
But, you know, when I decided to dissolve the integrator team, I went through a similar experience because I was like, "Dude, I did 2 scope calls with this guy." Like, I asked him for everything under the sun. We had an entire scope, he threw it clean out the window. Like, was I not specific enough? Was I not a good enough leader of the team? Like, what what happened? What was the failure point here? And it did take I had a friend, Pod actually was like, "Nah, dude, like, I walked into the whole situation. He's like, "Bro, I'm looking at the proposal, like, there's so many gaps here that he just didn't fill in."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I get
And
that. One of
it
the
k
things that are the TC squad, right? So, I was a solo entrepreneur, and when you first started this podcast, right? And then back in August of this last year, I joined forces with Sabrina and with Tiffany Chow. So Sabrina Stewart and Tiffany Chow are my business partners. And our vision for the TC squad, first and foremost, was to create a safe space for new TCs to learn and grow underneath other people that had been doing this already for so long, and to get paid for it, because you would
Mhm.
be surprised at how many people are out there that are like, yeah, you can come shadow underneath me and you can work for my team, but I'm not paying you anything. I'm not giving you a cut of any of the money. You should be honored that you get to learn, right? But a lot of these individuals, they're coming into entrepreneurship because they need financial security. They need that extra money. And if you're not willing to meet them financially, then you're kind of hindering them from even finding success in the first place, right? So we created the TC squad so that we could bring new TCs underneath us and teach them. But then outwardly looking, you know, not just at our team, but what we wanted to provide is that our goal is to be that one-stop shop for investors. So since August, we have branched out from being just TC, you know, a TC department. Now we have a fractional operating department. We have an accounting department. We have a servicing department. You know, we're on multiple different podcasts now, in between the three of us. And, you know, we're just constantly looking for, like, if we can't personally provide it, is there somebody that can join our team that can provide the service? And so that when an investor comes to us and says, hey, I need help with my TC work, and then they're like, wow, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know what to do next, we're like, we got you. We can help you from the moment you get that contract all the way up until the day you decide to sell that property, right? Like we're here to really support you in any way that we can. So I forget where I was going with that. Brain lapse.
It's all good, dude. I do think it's funny that it is that classic dichotomy between the visionary and the integrator. Like my partner, Tyler, who's on our No One Left Behind team, he's always saying progress, not perfection. And then he
Yes.
goes and leaves a huge wake in his a huge
Oh
mess
no.
in his wake, right? Like, and I'm always picking, like I'm always teasing him because I'm like, huh, it's weird. It's like you decided to follow your own processes this time. Like, I'm like, Tyler leaving comments in the CRM, like, huh, there's a first time for everything.
I know,
And
right?
I just give him endless amounts of shit, but that's what he does is he goes in and makes messes and he doesn't follow a script and he trains up our freshmen and he does a really good job with it. But what I always tell him, because that was what he would say, is progress not perfection. I told him, no, it's slow is smooth, but smooth is fast. Because that's
Yes.
how the integrators look at it, right? It's
Yeah.
like I'd rather sit here and practice 1,000 times. And I think that's why we have our own struggles, like
Yeah.
putting us on camera, we're like 10 takes later, but once we got it, then we'll post it.
Right, right. I know, yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
So
I love it
yeah,
when somebody is truly ready to hire an operator, right? So I've
which
learned
most aren't.
most aren't. No, yeah. So I actually have a whole system in place now. I have a readiness assessment test that I give an individual when they first reach out and they say, "Hey, actually, I could possibly share the test. Let's see if I have it."
Heather Grizzard and I were saying that like 2 weeks ago. We were saying that probably like 70% of people just need like an admin or a VA, and then the other 30 could get away
Yes.
with a fractional COO.
Yeah, 100%. Don't have that right here. I'll have to go look for it. Maybe by the end of our conversation, maybe I'll share it. So um there is this test that I give an investor, and I tell them, listen, don't answer these questions based on what you think you're supposed to say. You truly need to answer them at, like, where you are, right? Because that's a lot of people are like, well, Pace is telling me I need to get an operator. I'm in the owner's club. I have to have an operator, right? And then they're not willing to give their baby up, right? Like, they have
Hmm.
worked to build what they have. They had, like, nobody is ever going to be able to run your business the way you would run your business, right? We Many of us will strive and give it our all, and we will add twists on it based on our experience and our education on what we think should happen for the better of your business. But I will never be Adam, right? Like the way that you would talk, the way that you would process, the way that you would die on that mountain, like that it's different because I'm not you, right?
It
Uh,
is. A lot of it's teachable, and a lot of it comes down to culture within
yeah,
teams. But I will say that most people do try to do that in their operations. They want to hire that unicorn. And I found that last year in the fractional COO gig I did for that 4-month stint was I was trying to help not only that person, but she had asked me to help one of her clients. So I had a 30-minute phone call with her client, and he said, I want to hire a client care specialist and a project manager. And I said, which one? And he said, both. And I said, no, like, we're not doing that. I said,
Right.
those are
One then the
vastly
other.
different skill sets on, vastly different planes.
Yeah.
And I said, finding the intersection of those skill sets is incredibly, incredibly rare.
Yeah.
And the analogy I use, there's two. One is like when you talk to women and they want somebody at 6'4", makes over six figures, right?
Uh-huh.
Like it's this small, it's this much and this much. So when you combine the two, you get the actual portion of those people that fit that box is this
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Or in my business, what I had to learn was like, I drive a big truck and it's a stick shift. And that's a dwindling skill set, right?
Yeah.
But so is driving with a trailer on the back.
Yeah.
And I had 2 employees at the time, and one knew how to do the stick, but one knew
Mhm.
how to drive with a trailer. But I couldn't combine the 2 knuckleheads to make 1 knucklehead.
Right,
Like,
exactly. Oh my gosh.
and what I started to realize was, like, if I wanted to hire somebody that had both of those skill sets, I was gonna pay twice as much,
Exactly.
because that's how rare and difficult it is to find.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so much like you, having to go through that process, it's the same whenever I sit down with somebody that's looking for an operations. I'm asking them like, what are their goals and where do they want to be, but also what. This is one of my favorite questions. What is the morale of your team that you actually have? I want to know what kind of leader they are, and if they're
Mm,
somebody who is just like, yeah, I threw this team together, and I don't care what, like, if they like their work or not. I don't care if they have opinions on how to improve things. Those are the people that I'm going to be like, okay, I love your hopes and your dreams, but I'm not going to help you get there. I'm sorry. Like it,
nope.
I want to find somebody that says, you know what, like I have a couple people that work for me and they are fantastic. And if they have any input, I want you to like ask them, right? So this team out of Colorado, they have one VA who is fantastic. And um, day one, I sat down with her and I said, listen, you are my experience. I haven't been working for them. I don't know anything from, like, I'm ground zero, right? I want to hear from you what's really working well and what you wish the CRM was doing for you, where you feel like you're wasting time administratively. And she was able to answer all that, right? And every time I talked to her since then, I said, I still have your sticky notes right here on my desk, and I am working to find solutions for them. Because if it buys back your time, it's going to buy back my CEO's time, and it's going to help improve us on our processes, right? And that's why when I ask those questions during the beginning conversations, I know what kind of person I'm getting into that relationship with, and I know how easy it is going to be to find the things to help them. If I don't have that relationship with them, if they don't have that relationship with their team, then I'm like, I'm sorry, you're going to have the exact same relationship with me. You're not going to care whether or not I'm showing up to work on time or not. And if I'm not here, what's going on with my family? And, all you're going to care about is, I wanted this project done. And although I told you you had 3 weeks, I actually really want it done in 1 week. And you have fallen short because you should have known I wanted it done. Right. And yeah, so I have a new system that I have put into place, and several of the TCs in the top tier TC community have been given access to that system. So you might see it being rolled out in the community over the next couple months, and I just hope that it helps. It helps operators, but it also helps the visionaries to pause and say, like, I'm just not ready yet. Right? It's okay. Like, it's okay if you're not ready yet. Just grow a little bit, learn a little bit more about yourself, and then when you are ready, reach out to us and we'll gladly help you. Just do your part first and grow into that entrepreneur you need to be, that leader you need to be, and then come find us.
Well, and that's what makes that COO role that linchpin in any good organization is like we come in from the outside. Like you said, we have no experience. I don't
Right.
know my head from my ass within this organization. I have no idea what you've been up to or what it took to get here or how the last 15 years have gone, which
Yeah.
was the case in the organization I joined last year for that 4-month contract. And I had to tell her, I had to ask her, one, what was her culture? And she was like, I have a very unique culture, which I can deal with that. But
Yeah.
if you think you don't have a culture, then you do have a culture. It's just a bad one, and you're just not aware of it because you're not monitoring it.
Yeah.
That's one thing I learned straight off the bat. But also, like you were saying, you come in, I interviewed every single person in every single role, sometimes multiple times, until we really got all the way down to the nitty-gritty, what's important to the job role. We modified all of her job descriptions. We modified the key roles and responsibilities, the qualifications, and at the end of it, she ended up axing a couple of people right off of her team because she didn't need them. She had, like, 8, 9 people on a team. She wasn't able to pay herself. It's like, you you need to like, we need to give you some breathing room for you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's good that you saw that and was able to help in that way. Um, yeah.
That's what COOs do, man. We come in and we find the waste and we get rid of all of it
Yeah.
because we're not here to make things more arduous for the team. But one thing I told her is I said, I'm an advocate, right?
Yeah.
I'm an advocate on both sides. I'm advocating to you for them because this is what they want for the team to be able to row the boat in the same direction at the same speed on cadence. I said, however, it's your job as a visionary to tell me where you want to go so I know where in the hell to tell them to steer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because otherwise, if one side's rowing faster than the other, we're going in circles. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it
I
doesn't take a
I
lot
love
either. It can be just a little bit off cadence before you start veering off course.
true. Yeah. And if you don't have a visionary who's willing to take the time to explore that, like you had shared just a minute ago, the uncertainty. Well, we could do this or we could do that. You know, it's like no, like you need to sit down and you really like you need to say, great example. I keep going back to this team in Colorado that I'm working with. It's a dad and son duo, and the son is really good with acquisitions like wholesaling. Their focus is wrapping to an end buyer. So he's really good at the acquiring, right? His father is phenomenal at capital raising, but also educating the local community because their passion is to help the Hispanic community in that area obtain their first property, right? So that they have something to pass on to their next generation and so on and so forth. And so I'm talking to the son over here about fixing the CRM and the systems and creating an intake form for wholesalers because they're getting, stuff sent to them through text and email, and sometimes it's lacking, right? So I'm fixing that problem over here by talking with him. And then I jump on a call with the father, and he's like, my passion would be to reach 100 people in a month instead of 50 people in a month, and I don't know how yet that's going to be possible. And so I get that opportunity to brainstorm with him of, well, what are you doing right now? What could we do differently, right? And it was like, well, you have all these conversations that are repeat conversations, right? Why are we not creating a vault to send people through, right? That and let until they finish the course, they can't be an end buyer for you. They need to go through that educational process. Instead of you sitting down day after day, week after week, you have to pull them in somehow and then send them through the course. And he's like, I like this idea. And I was like, well, okay, then let's talk about, well, how do you pull them in the first place? You still have this charisma and ability to attract people physically and in person, and you don't want to lose that. You don't want to be stuck behind the screen all the time. And he's like, 100%.
Mhm.
I hate being stuck behind the screen. So, okay, well, we could work towards maybe doing once a month live event in your area that people come to. And at the end of the event is when you pitch the course, right? I'm like, and you don't even have to charge them for the course because you're hoping that they'll be an end buyer in the end, and your passion is just to help, right? So here
Mhm.
I am. We had said, every outgoing introvert is a bit of a visionary, right? So I was able to hear like, this is what I hope to do, and these are the visionary ideas that I have, and I'm able to then turn on my visionary side and be like, well, what if we do this, and what if we do that, and this leads to that, right? But then I immediately put back on that integrator hat, and I'm like, okay, so this is the system we need to do to get us there. First this,
Right.
then this, then this, and we'll be able to achieve it. And it's just so much fun to have two totally different projects, right? Two totally different departments. Both of them are rightfully so CEOs of their own department, and having to change what I'm doing for each person and integrate differently, to hopefully help them scale their business over time. So um, I hope that helped in some way or gave insight to anybody that's in
No,
this.
I think it does. I think all good anybody that aspires to be a C-suite of anything, whether it's of your own company or somebody else's company, needs to understand that, like, visionary and integrator are never really a clean split, and it could be anywhere. Like, you're never 100% one or 100% the other. Most CEOs are mostly visionary with some integrator because they still have to be able to execute and integrate and hire and fire. And
Right.
COOs are the same way, like, you have to have, whether it be, 20, 30, 40% visionary tendencies, because you still need to be able to take what that CEO is saying and translate that into the real world. Because your job is you're steering the fucking boat. Like,
Exactly.
you're the one with the rudder in your hand, so guess what? You're the one calling the cadence from the back of the boat while everybody else is rowing, to go back to the original analogy a few moments ago. And it does not take a lot. It takes just one person being a bad fit for the culture to start rowing in the wrong speed, and the whole company starts to go too far left or too far right. And before you know it, you're going in circles. And
Right.
admittedly, it's very wide circles at first, but if you leave that one cancer in that company, it spreads and it spreads. And then next thing you know, you got 4 and 5 people that are all striking. And before you know it, you got a mutiny on your boat. It's like you can't have that.
Yeah, no, not at
So,
all. Don't turn your employees into pirates. Please don't do that.
yeah. Yeah, and it comes to, like, finding, one of the things I used to tell my guys when I had both of them working for me was that we set the standard and we hold the standard. And so what that meant for us was that we have these core values, and, like, you know what they are because there's only a handful of them. 'Em. They're not
Right.
that hard to remember, and so if anything that I do or you do goes against these core values, I need you to call it out right now, and I need
Exactly.
you to call it out immediately. And so even when we were faced with difficult decisions with customers, there was one time I remember we were standing in this guy's living room, and he's telling me about basically why he wants a swap. Because if you're not totally satisfied with the product that we deliver, the first thing that we'll do is we'll swap it for for free. We'll come and do that for you. And this one was a particularly arduous one. Like, it was a long way to go with a lot of weight. And I remember standing in this guy's living room. My guy is with me. He's over to my left. The customer's to my right. The customer's like, do you see my point? Do you see why it's not to the standard?" Basically. He didn't say standard, but he was like, Do you see why this isn't working for me?" And I said,
Right.
"Yeah, I could see that." And my guy's over here and he's like, "Well, it works fine. Look at it. It's doing what it's supposed to do." Um, you know, and he was prepared to blame the customer for just not knowing how to use the product.
Right.
And I remember sitting there and, kind of like you said earlier, it's like the angel and the devil on your shoulder.
Yeah.
And they're both looking at me and they're both like, "Well, what are we gonna do?"
Yeah.
And I said, "You know what?" I said, "We're gonna do it. We're gonna go, we're gonna take because we ended up finding a compromise where we swapped out some of the product, but not all of the product.
Got it. Yeah.
Um, the customer was fine with that. And so we ended up doing that. And, at the end of the day, he asked me, he's like, well, how much do I owe you for doing that? I said, you don't.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, you don't. Like,
Yeah.
and that was the one thing I told him before we left. I said, we set the standard, hold the standard. And so anytime something would come up, anytime a core value issue would come up, I would tell them that. And that was like their little reminder to reevaluate on core values, what was actually
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. I will always remember, one of our first conversations. I feel like maybe it wasn't one of our first, but it was during the earlier part of our relationship of getting to know each other. You mentioned the five dysfunctions of a team, right? That book, fantastic book, one of my favorite books. I think I've listened to the audio several times over the last couple of years. And when I joined forces with Sabrina and Tiffany, I made it very apparent when we were drafting up our core values that book needed to the things that I learned from that book needed to be reflected, right? And to this day, I feel like that helped us create this relationship, this working relationship that has been so healthy. And I was able to see that in that moment when, that client reached out and said, hey, like, I don't need your help anymore. I have the AI specialist and I want my refund, right? So, I got on a conversation call with them, and they it was so nice that they were like, "Listen, like, what does the contract say?" And then I was like, "Okay, now let's just take a step back and let's look at they paid you $3,000 for this project, and you hope to finish this project, in a month, but just looking at the price, $3,000 for a project. What percentage of the project, Emma, did you already complete? Not not putting the emotion in of like, well, they're not letting me complete it. Just
Mhm,
answering the question of, okay, well, hiring, managing, rolling out. Well, I mean, I definitely haven't done 50% of the work, right? I'm not even close. This client is asking for a 50% reimbursement. So
mhm,
technically you are getting paid for more than the percentage of work that you've done, right? And that was one of the critical arguments that was brought into the table, right? By one of the people that would be losing money. But that's how we work at the TC Squad, right? We want to like be like, well, if I was the client, I can see where they're thinking that, and I can see where they're arguing that, right? And so we want to be an honorable individual, and we want to put our clients first, and we want to work as a team. So with those core values in mind, how do we handle the situation, right? And there were moments where it's like one partner was like, well, I see where Emma's coming from, and the other one's like, well, I see where the client's coming from, and we were able to just go back and forth and work it out till came to a conclusion that we all agreed on. This is how we need to move forward because this is who we are as a business, right? And I want to just say thank you for like recommending that book. And if anybody is watching this, go get the book. It's an amazing book. If you are an entrepreneur, if you're planning on having a team, if you're planning on being an operator or CEO of a team, like you need to learn the importance of having a healthy leadership board, if you will, and what that means. And that book is speaks to that.
it's also a fantastic book because it tells it in a very story-like manner with a fictionalized story, with a fictionalized company, with fictionalized people,
Yeah.
so that way nobody can be hurt by it. It's written just like, Built to Sell is, which is another good book that'll
Right.
help you streamline your effectiveness. But what's ironic, and I'm glad you brought that book up because I almost forgot that I recommended that book to you probably about this time last year.
Probably, yeah.
Um, it was about this time because I was working with my team on finding funding for these really big deals. And I remember we were starting to experience some level of dysfunction in the team. So I was like, let me pick up this book. Like I bought the book, I need to read it. And I remember being struck by it and being like, because we already had core values in all of our contracts. We had core values from the operator whose team you were on that I did a deal with.
Yeah.
that was what made us implement that in the first place. But what we weren't realizing was like, how are we upholding the core values between each other? And I think that's what the five dysfunctions of the team really teaches you. Because I remember reading the whole book and I got towards the end, I was like, man, I said, how on a team of three people do we have all five dysfunctions? Like I said, like, man, like we're really like we're overachievers over here.
I know, right? Kudos to you. Good job.
Because I had both partners griping at me about the other one through me,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know? And I was like, that's not how this works. I'm still good friends with both of them. Like, I have no qualms against either.
Yeah.
But I remember one of them telling me that the other one's not is doing this or he's not doing that, and that she's doing this or she's not doing that. And I was like, man, this is a lot. But the other point I think with reading to bring up is like I still read 10 pages every day, you
Awesome.
know? I started that habit again. I've fallen on and off the wagon several times over many years, but I started that habit again last year, and that was one of the books that I started with.
Yeah.
Um, and I will say, because most people are like 10 pages, like that doesn't get you very far. It does. It gets you at least a book a month, usually, at least. Probably on average, I do a book every 3 weeks.
Awesome.
But what it does is it ingrains all these concepts up here. And before you know it, you're like, I remember I connected with somebody in JJ's group. And we got on a call and we were talking about all of this. We were talking about core values and ethics and business and safety and all those things. And he's like, bro, you talk like all this stuff is second nature. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, how do you know all this? And I get asked that a lot. I've been asked that by Tyler too. Like, how do you know all this stuff? Like, how do you? It's like, dude, you have to work constantly to improve yourself and to continue to read and learn and evaluate. Because the more you do, the better you get. Like right now, I'm on Pace's book. You
Yeah.
know, but
I really like
yes.
that. It's a good book. If you want a few recommendations, I haven't kept up with it. I need to go back. After Squad Up, I got so busy that I fell off of posting. But for a while there, I was going onto my LinkedIn and I was sharing a little blurb about a book and how to apply it to an entrepreneur's
Hmm.
life. And there are several good books out there, including one of them about the Gracie family. So if you are into MMA, um,
Mm.
it just the that connection between being a jujitsu fighter and a great leader. Like there are so many things that you should take away, and you should be able to cross over, right? So I have never, ever, ever learned how to fight in any kind of like MMA, jujitsu, whatever. Like I've never done taken any lessons,
Hmm.
but I picked up the book anyways, and I found a lot out of it. And so go LinkedIn me, find me there and just look up couple of the books that I shared before leading into Squad Up because there was quite a few that I posted about.
That raises a good question. Why don't you throw out a few of your top ones? Like, it doesn't have to be top three, doesn't have to be top five, but
Oh
like,
my goodness.
if I came to Emma Duncan today and I was like, what do I need to read to be, whether it's better or more effective or
Yeah, let's see here. So the one thing is one of those books that I recommend. Um of course um the book we just mentioned, the five dysfunctions. And then there is a book on awareness. I'm trying to find the name of it here. I'm not seeing.
yeah, I bought 19 books or 20 books after Christmas.
Yeah,
So, because I usually get Amazon gift cards every year, but I don't use it to buy anything else from Amazon but books.
it's crazy. I love the way that you're able to do that.
Yeah, I think I spent like $355 on books
Wow.
last year, and so of course I said that was subsidized because I had like some people threw in gift cards or whatever. But um, I know the one thing is somewhere in that list of books to read. But a few that I always go through is like Relentless, Winning. You can learn a lot from both of those. Start with Why.
Start with
Um, The Five Dysfunctions is a great one. Built to Sell is another great one. Millionaire Fastlane. Um,
I don't think I've read that one. I'll need to read over that one at some point.
y- you would like that one. I've got his other book in my queue to read soon. Buy Then Build is a good one. Chase's book, Wealth Without Cash is a good one. And I read recently just finished Hunter Thompson's books or his Raising Capital book, but also 12
Oh
Rules for
yeah,
Life
that's a
and
really good
Beyond
one.
Order.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good one. Um,
Both of Jordan Peterson's books I found were very, very good. But I think if you like the Gracie book, you probably would like both of Grover's books, Relentless and Winning.
you would pop those in the side chat, and then that way I can see them. That'd be fun. Fantastic.
Yeah, one's about Michael Jordan, and then the other one is about Kobe Bryant. And the one Winning was actually set to release like that May, and Kobe died in the helicopter crash, I think in like March.
Yeah, we were on our last round of chemo, if I remember right. Getting ready to get out of the hospital when that happened.
But both are fantastic books, and what I like about both of them is it doesn't tell you what to think or what to do, but it tells you kind of how to think.
That I enjoy books like that. Copy link. Here we go.
And especially if you're one that's very competitive, um, I think it kind of feeds that competitive side a little bit. It will get you kind of get those wheels turning as to like, one of the things I had to evaluate was like, what really pushes me more? Am I more, do I hate losing or do I love winning?
Oh
And for me,
yeah,
I hate losing. I can't stand losing. Like winning, kind of meh, I could shake it off. Like, you know, compliments, I don't always take them that well. I'm just like, cool, whatever. But um losing I absolutely can't stand.
yeah. No, I think I would agree with that as well. That but one of the things that I've learned is in those moments of feeling like you've lost, being able to have the awareness to reflect and to learn and to grow, right? I think the younger me would have been pissed off that I had failed, right? The newer me would be able to say, okay, now pause. What went wrong? Starting to be that strategist of life so that you can do something better moving forward. And the book Insight. So I put in the side chat right before Split Up. I had recommended 3 different books for individuals who are traveling and that may wanted like a traveling companion book. And Insight was one of them. And just really talking about being aware of yourself, right? So I've been on a continual hunt of books that talk about not only being able to be aware of the way that people perceive you, but also being able to be aware of the way that you perceive yourself and growing as an individual to be somebody that can do both because it's a unicorn, right? We're going back to that analogy of like, can you be a stick shift? Can you drive the trailer, right? Can you be a leader who is very aware of people and the way that they look at you? Can you be a leader who is very aware of the way that you perceive yourself, that unicorn leader is somebody who can do both, right? And that's kind of been a driving passion of mine since reading that book, Insight. So that's another book you should pick up.
You said insights?
That Insight.
I'll have to check that one out. Emotional intelligence is actually, in my queue, and that's coming up soon as well.
I cannot type. I know that. There you go. Right, there we go.
Yeah, emotional intelligence is a good one too, from what I've been told. So that's coming up soon because it really teaches you kind of how to read people.
Yeah.
Never Split the Difference was a really good one too. We were talking about that the other day. Because it teaches you how kind of how to negotiate, and in a lot of ways, kind of how to stand up for yourself, especially if you're not typically assertive.
Yeah.
Like just by asking good, curious questions, and in some cases, almost playing dumb,
Yeah.
you can have a much easier time with drawing boundaries and getting people to really think and see things from your side just by reading what the advice that Chris Voss gives.
Awesome. I'll have to, I think that's probably the next book for me, I think. Because what growing up, being the youngest of five girls, um, don't know if you knew that about me, but youngest
Oh,
of
I'm the oldest of
five.
six, and it's five
Yeah.
boys and one girl.
Yeah, so I was on the flip side of that, right? Your opinion really didn't matter. You got the hand-me-downs, you got in the car, whatever seat was available, you never picked the radio, right? Like that being
Yeah.
the youngest of that many, right? That's kind of how it happens. And so growing up into entrepreneurship, growing up into leadership, learning that um to share your insights, right? And to know when to listen and be that fly on the wall and when to speak up about what you're seeing is very crucial, right? And so picking up any skill set that you have to find that voice within you, because it doesn't always come naturally, especially if you're the youngest of five, right? And so I've had to learn that. And even during the most recent issue that arose that we've been talking about off and on, I retroactively, like, I'm looking back at it and I'm like, I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have pointed this out earlier on in the partnership, right? And if I would have had that voice within me was stronger, it would have come out, right? It was after the phone call, it was after the Zoom call ended up that I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, this would have been a really good point to say, right? So I think never split the difference. I think that book will definitely help me out where I am now to help me grow.
Yeah, one of the big things that he recommends is just simply asking people like, "Well, how am I supposed to do that?" Right? And
Yeah.
I find that one's particularly helpful when people are trying to discount you for whatever reason. And it could be in a literal sense, it could be in a metaphorical sense. They could be arguing with you over like $50 and a price on Facebook Marketplace. I found that's what I applied it to recently.
Yeah.
And because I told the guy, I had a mattress and he wanted me to deliver it. And someone's like, yeah, well, it's this price plus an extra 50 or $60 to get it to you
Oh,
because it's my fuel, it's my time. And usually to deliver these big king mattresses, I need an extra pair of hands. So I have to pay somebody to do it. And he was like, well, we're on a tight budget. This is what I can afford, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, but how am I supposed to do that? And right, because at the end of the day, like the fuel is still expensive. I do
yeah.
need to give somebody some kind of cash part-time to come help with that. Like,
Or at least a
I'm not
slice of
in
pizza for crying out loud. Like, you just
right,
knock all the calories off, right? Yeah, exactly.
right. I'm not conscripting Emma to come take this long journey with me because at the end of the day, it's a 3-hour ordeal. We gotta go to
Right.
the storage unit, we gotta get it out of the storage onto the truck, drive the 45 minutes to where he's at, and then drive 45 minutes back after we
Yeah.
unload it. Like, that's 3 hours, easy. Um, and so that was really, really helpful. But also I would say The Four Agreements too, if you haven't read that one. I love that book.
Oh yeah. I think I have it was a long time ago though. because I'm not pulling, that summary up in my mind. So I'll have to double back on that one.
That one really kind of helped give me a little bit more peace with how things played out. Um, because of the four agreements, w- some of the most important one, like the most important one in my opinion, besides be impeccable with your word, the other three kind of downflow from there. But the last one, the fourth one, is to always do your best.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, the marriage of those two are actually the same as one of the rules that Jordan Peterson has in one of his books. I think it's Beyond Order, which is more or less that whatever comes from speaking the truth is the best possible outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you always do your best, if you always speak the truth, like you'll be able to at least put your head on the pillow at night and be able to go to sleep. It might not always be pretty. It's not always gonna like sort itself out right away,
Right.
but I found that, like I said, the Four Agreements and Jordan Peterson's two books, because I've read both. I've read Rules for Life and Beyond Order. They both were really helpful with kind of giving you just good general guidelines. This like if you stick to this, you'll feel better when things do go sideways.
Oh man, that totally speaks to like what I'm going through and what I've been going through for my first transaction. Um, and that's been a pivot that I've been in the process of doing, and it's been crazy. Like, I've been behind the desk, behind like the one helping everyone. And I had this epiphany back in November, December that I should just pick up the phone and try to acquire my own properties, right? And why not, right? Why wait for everybody else? I have this knowledge. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I know what needs to happen. And I started on this journey for this property here in Cornville, Arizona, that very quickly turned from just maybe buying something that could be turned into a co-living house to now I'm in the process of acquiring two residential assisted living businesses that are active and cash flowing great, right? Um, I have learned so much through this process because I've had at least one partnership that failed in and they backed out and I lost the contract. But through the journey of being like transparent and telling the truth, right, to the seller, I still have a viable deal, right? And it wouldn't be that case if I wasn't open and honest. So we had a 60-day escrow process. The first 30 days was supposed to be due diligence. And
Mhm.
I brought the contract to the table because the seller wants to sell to nobody else. They want me to take over the business, right? They love me. Like I've built that relationship. But I knew that I do not have that credibility for a lender because this is my first transaction, right? And I'm a renter. I don't have my own property as well. So I found somebody that I was TCing for and asked them to come in to provide that part of that relationship in the transaction. And the during the entire 30 days of due diligence, we he was unable to find lending. I don't know if it was coming from him not having the right partnerships, him pitching it right. I don't know, right? It was very hard to get a lot of information through that process. And really he just wanted he presented things to the seller hoping that they would get even more creative. But the sellers were like, no, like this is what we can do, this is what we won't do, right? So on the flight back from Squad Up, I got a text message. I saw him at Squad Up, no problem. On the plane ride back, he said, I think we're probably gonna have to pull out. We're having a hard time finding funding. And a week later, he's like, yeah, I don't think this is doable. And here I am. I'm like, listen, just let me know if you need out because I'm not giving up on this transaction.
Mhm.
I'm not giving up. I'm not emotionally tied to the transaction. I just see that it's a really good deal and I can make it work. we can figure it out, right? But if
Yep.
yeah, like I get it, like it's too taking too much of your time, you're worried about your lender, whatever it is, like you have the right as my partner to back out. And one day, it just hit that pinnacle point, and he texts me. He says, "We're done," and I told the agent that we're canceling it. And so I immediately called the agent and I said, "Listen, like his name is on the contract because he carries the weight of it." I was like, "But I still am in this." And I drove up to the seller's house with a giant bouquet of flowers, and this lady is in her I would say in her she acts like she's in her early 70s, but she definitely is was older than that. Let's just put it that way, right?
Mhm.
And I apologized to her and said, "Listen, I brought this person into your house as my partner, and it did not work out. So right now I'm admitting that I brought the wrong person into this relationship, and I'm apologizing. I still really want this to work, and I am willing to work my tush off to make this happen. Like, please don't lose faith in me, right?" And here we are, as of yesterday evening, they decided that they are okay with moving forward with the process, which now I have a local DSCR who's willing to do rural, who's willing to do residential assisted living. I met them by going to a local meetup. I have built a relationship with the current manager. She's willing to stay on. She's willing to be a part owner in this so that she can carry the state licensure and then also check off that box of experience in this business that the DSCR lender wants to see. And then I found the right partner to be that loan sponsor, and that happened to be the godfather of my children, right? Um, Impeccable credit score, been a landlord for all of his adult life, and he's able to bring that and check off that box, right? So I have everybody in place, and I'm like, "Listen, seller, thank you for putting up with me for so long. I am beginning the process of appraisal for this if you're willing to go back under contract with me." And as of last night, they said yes, like we're willing to give it one last go and see if it works. So being transparent, telling the truth, you know, can get you so far in this business. And so it to me, why not be open and honest and truthful in everything that you do? I think that that is the way that we should be running businesses.
No, I agree, and the 4 agreements, just for the sake of it, is to be impeccable with your word,
Yeah,
to don't take anything personally,
yeah,
to don't make assumptions, and to
uh-huh,
always do your best.
yeah,
So, if you can more or less abide by those 4 rules in most scenarios, you've got a deal. You've got somebody that you can work with, and you've got somebody that passes all of the safety and ethics that
right,
you need in order to move forward with something, right? Like you said, being impeccable, so just telling the truth, don't take it personally.
yeah.
It's
My partner needed to get out. Great, that's business. Like you need to get out. I understand. Like I'm still moving forward, right?
right, more often than not, it's not personal, it's usually something going on with them.
Yeah,
Um, don't make assumptions because that just always leads to more anxiety, more confusion, more, like, words just put into people's mouths, and that, to me, is the same as lying because 'cause you're lying to yourself.
yeah,
And to always do your best. Like, you and I worked on that property last year too, we had that co-living that, and I think that it sounds like that was the difference, right? Like, when we were working on it together, I was texting you throughout the process, like, every day, like, "Hey, this is who I pitched. I need you in this meeting. Come over
yeah,
here, help me work on this deck."
yeah. Exactly, exactly. And then
Um,
and then I remember because there was times where you could have taken things personal during that relationship, and you were able to take a breather and move on, right?
I mean, that's the thing is in any relationship and on any project, there's always an opportunity to take things personal, whether
Mhm.
it's from my side or from your side. From
Right.
my perspective, I didn't have any real reason to take it personal because I was like, "This is my friend, this is Emma, like, I've always wanted to do a deal with you, I've always wanted to work on something, that we could help work out together, and
Yeah.
everything I needed, you gave me."
Yeah.
Um, you
And
know
then it just flopped, right? Like it was one of those things I was like, dude, I really want to pay you for all the work that you did. And then it wasn't the right timing, it wasn't like the right property. We weren't able to find the right financing for it before time ran out. So
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the closest thing I think we had to hang up was just that you were busy. So there was once or twice I was like, "Hey, dude, can you give me access to this?" And you're like, "Oh shit, I was in a meeting." Like,
yeah,
"I'm
yeah,
so sorry."
yeah, yeah. No, that's true. Or going from a meeting to I had that, my now 3-year old was at home. He wasn't able to be in school, so I was juggling being a mom and being in meetings and trying to get information to you. And that was one of the things that we had to learn as a family, to buy back my time, that my child needed to go as soon as possible, needed to go into a daycare so that I could go on this journey of entrepreneurship and be present as much as I needed to be.
Yeah. But like I said, we moved to that whole thing, and I told you, like, I was like, "You don't really owe me anything." You're like, "No, bro, like, you worked on this." And that was a pleasant surprise too, but I think we both went into it with those 4 agreements in mind, even though you hadn't read that book. I think you embody that. That's one of the reasons that we were fast friends in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why when I said, dude, what are you doing? You need to have a podcast. You were like, well, let's do it. Let's start it. Let's go.
Well, and like I said, that's the funny part. I still remember one of the things you said on that first call, because we set up a 30-minute networking call. I think we went for like an hour and change.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said at the very end was you were like, "What do you need? You haven't said anything about what you need out of this. Like, I don't understand. Like, everybody else is telling me that they need private money lenders, they need private money partners, they need better leads, they need a CRM." You were like, "What do you need?" And I was like, "Girl, I'm good."
Yeah.
You were like, "That's a first."
You're like, I'm like, okay, well, when you figure out what you need, give me a call because I'm here. Like, yeah, right.
And I have, and we've had many phone calls since then.
Yeah. Yeah. Back and forth, right? We like that. That's the way that it works. Like we said in that first podcast, it's like if somebody pops in your mind, text them, right? Because we've been able to build that relationship between you and I, where hey, like you popped in my head, what's going on, right? And you're like, oh, this just happened, like let's chat, and vice versa. So it's been smart to network in that way and to build those relationships and not just type them into a CRM and then forget about them and then control F to find them whenever you need them, right? You
Yep.
gotta work on those relationships before you need something out of that person.
Oh, yeah, and you need to have that rapport and that trust there. Like, you and I talked about everything else. Like, we talked about faith, and we talked about family, and we talked about dating. Because at the time, I was single when
Yeah.
you and I met, and I was going out on dates, and you're like, "Look, bro, I'm married, like, don't give up.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it
Exactly.
gets better." And you build those commonalities and those things, and, we have our little inside jokes, right? Like, to me, that was one of the greatest fulfillments of, like, this friendship was we finally got to go to Squad Up Summit. Like, I've known you for over a year at this point, pretty much almost since the beginning of my journey. You weren't able to make it last year, so
Right.
you did make it this year. You're wearing a T-shirt from this year because I got the same T-shirt hanging. Um, and I was finally able to, like, hug you and be like, "Oh my god, how have you been?" And we were able to take those inside jokes, those things, those smiles, those laughs, the all the things that had built this and bring it in person. We were literally able to walk around like we were saying we were gonna do, like, "Have you met Emma?"
I know that was so much fun to do that. Just to go and to meet the people that and say, hey, like I'd love to get to know those people as well. So
So for those that don't know, because Emma had been saying this for a long time, she was like, "Well, when we finally meet in person, I'm just gonna follow you around like a lost puppy. Like, we're just gonna go bounce around from conversation to conversation." And of course, when there's like over 3,000 people in a hotel. It was hard enough to find you in the first
Yeah,
place.
yeah. And there was a couple times where I was like, I think one of the last times that we were walking around together, I said, "Hey, I'll be right back," because I had to go like hand something off to one of my partners. And I turned around and you were like swept away in this group. And I was like, "Where'd he go?"
Dude, it just happens like that, and I remember, like, we finally set an intention, which was a big part of the last podcast too, like, set an intention, follow through, basically set that standard and hold that standard for yourself. Because setting the intention is keeping a promise to yourself. So you were like, "No, we are meeting up. We're gonna be right here." You're like, "I'm in VIP. I'm gonna come right out of this door. I will be right there." And sure as shit, I am standing there, and here comes Emma, and I was like, "Bet, it's game on."
Let's
And
do it.
the first person I recognized, I looked at, I was like, "Miguel." I said, "Get your ass over here." And I asked, I was like, "Have you met Emma?" And you're like, "Yeah, we did an interview this morning." But what I thought was interesting was the first thing that Miguel told me was about the podcast that I tell everybody was it's your fault that I started one.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like here it is, like Miguel, like I met him. He was one of the first real good relationships that I had in San Francisco when we were there living there. And I was able to go on his podcast during the event, and then here you are. And I encouraged you to do this podcast, right? And you've been doing it for over a year. You're already at what, 48, I think is what you said. Like, this is episode 48.
Yep,
And so I finally took my own advice, and I have one podcast up and running, and I'm getting ready to launch a second one as well. So I have like two different podcasts that I'm going to be working on moving forward. So the first one, if you go onto Facebook and you look it up, it's Automate Me Please, and you can
I
find
did
that.
see that.
Yeah. So I have Kyle, who is my AI and automations expert. Like, I mean, he does this for his work, his W-2, but he also does it for the community as well. And he is leading the conversation when the other two individuals, the people that don't know anything, show up, and I just happen to be one. Um, that that we get to ask, like, well, what do we do in this instance? Like, I wish AI did this. I wish there was an automation that did this, right? So we are hoping that that podcast is designed for people to come in that know absolutely nothing, and that they're able to not only follow it but implement it into their business. So automate me please. We have I think two episodes out there, and we're getting ready to record our third one. And then I actually have two guests already signed up for the next podcast that I'll be launching, and it's We Talk, w.e.talk. So it's actually women entrepreneur, and it's designed not just for real estate, but all walks of life, all entrepreneurial tracks. And the people that I've met over my lifespan, including women like the godmother to my children, who was in the military and then got out of that. And then she had a traumatic brain injury, lost everything. And then she, through her therapy, took on being an artist. And now she is a growing entrepreneur as an artist. So nothing that has to do with real estate, right? And I have
But
somebody.
also everything that has to do with real estate because business transcends.
Exactly, exactly. And then I'm hoping to get it scheduled, the midwife for my last home birth, because she gets to talk to women every day. I mean, like, she gets to help women through the hardest part of being a woman, which is giving birth to another life, and the things that she has learned, right? So this podcast is going to be talking about, like, well, why did you become an entrepreneur and what are you doing? But it's also going to be talking about, what have you learned and what do you wish you could educate other entrepreneurs, and help them and support them. So I haven't launched it yet. I'm in that phase of, like you said, scheduling out my first people to interview, and then hopefully in the next few months I'll be able to start sharing that. But I'm crazy. Not one, but two podcasts all at once.
Look, I just didn't diversify podcasts. I had diversified teams, and that was my big thing. And I was like, I was all over the place with that because I knew I didn't want to. I didn't want to be responsible for editing and uploading two different podcasts. I have a hard enough time with one.
Oh, I know, I know. That's why Kyle gets to do the automation one. I'm like, you go for it. Like, I'll show up, I'll talk. But
But one of the things you said about "Automate Me, Please," is interesting because that's more or less the same direction I took with this, which is, you know, I so when I joined SubTo in January of 24, I came in, like I told you previously, having known absolutely nothing about real estate, but everything about business. And so that was where I came in to try to just add value to people, right? Was like, let me let me come in, let me help you with your systems, let me do whatever I can do to add value to you based on what I know, which is nothing about real estate and everything about business and processes and margins and how things should go.
yeah,
And because of that, I've been able to help out a lot of newer investors and some that have even been in the community for longer and gain that traction quicker because I had a foundation. So I came in and like that deal we talked about that fell out of escrow, like I had that raise done within 60 days of being in the community. Like I had just set the training wheels of like my MSA had just him and I had just parted ways.
yeah,
And I was able to tell Pace on family night that I completed a raise. But I went into this and I think it's because we set the intention from the first one that you and I did, which is that, like, if this was a brand new investor that found this, whether it would be today because they went on Facebook and they saw the Zoom
right.
link and they joined, or they found it out in the internet on YouTube, like, I want this to be able to benefit somebody that knows absolutely nothing.
Yes.
And so I have tried to just ask questions, even on the things that I know more about than others, as if I didn't know a damn thing. And it's gone a really, really long way.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that you do that.
But also, I think having the wealth of experience and knowledge that we have in the community has been super helpful. Because since, obviously I had you on as the first guest, so I had a TC operator,
Yeah.
and we went straight from a TC operator to a capital raiser to a connector who does co-living, and
Yeah.
we've done whole master classes, we've done deal breakdowns that didn't ask me anything. I had a multifamily developer come on. I
Ooh,
had business coaches. Um, I mean, shit, dude, just about anybody you can think of between Gator top tier and sub two. And a lot of them were really big names, and it's just because of what I described in the first episode that you and I do as far as networking, getting into bigger rooms with really popular people.
yeah. It's true. I mean, like it goes back to like it's not the whole saying. It's not what you know. It's who you know, and then learning from them as you progress on. And this platform that you have as a podcast, it helps you get in the room with those people so that you can glean from them, which is amazing.
Oh yeah, but also I think just being yourself, like I
Uh,
would be able to get into rooms with really big and powerful people in the communities long before I had a podcast even.
true.
Um, some of the best conversations I had was before I was before some of you would say that I was anybody, right? It's like I just went in just to add value to
Yeah.
people, and that was how I met people like Jesse and Duran and people like that. Um, some of those interviews I did, I kept the recordings, but like I told you, probably the first 7 or 8, it probably was episode 8 before I even put them on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then by 8, I put them all on YouTube, but they were like unlisted and they were just recordings for people to go back to if they had questions about a specific topic. And then by probably like episode 10 or 11, I switched them all to public, and now they're publicly available. And within the last couple of months, now that they're beginning to become available on audio platforms so that way other people can find us on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify or any of the other platforms besides YouTube.
That's awesome. I look forward to have when you have all 48 episodes up on those platforms, because I think that more and more people, it'll attract more and more people. More people will be able to hear the knowledge that you're getting and you're putting out for us.
Oh yeah, and I think that's the best part is that the best way to learn is to teach.
Mhm.
And so in a lot of ways I'm just asking people to teach me, but I'm also able to answer questions that have come up. Like you and I did Q&A on the first one as well. And as people would ask the questions, we each gave an answer. And your
Yeah,
answer is different than mine and still just as efficient, but it's different enough I can learn from it.
yeah, yeah. I'm wondering if through all that we've ranted on today, if there are any questions now, or if you're putting it on YouTube, is there a way for people to ask questions there? Like, I
In
they
the comments.
I need to go in there and look at the ones that I've been in to see if there's anything that I can add value to.
Yeah, there was a couple people that gave compliments on your first one. I don't know if I'd seen any questions
Okay.
in there necessarily, but yeah, there are people um that do leave comments and watch it. Yep, it was 11 months ago that I added it to YouTube, even though
Before
um
St.
we did
Patty's
the
Day.
interview on St. Patrick's Day, yeah. Oh yeah, there was one question on it, and that was what is Kajabi? And I answered that one in there that, that is what our Sub2 course is hosted in. It's a education platform that you can buy and sell and, you know, courses. Better sorry I was late. Definitely picked up some value. Thank you both for what you do. Appreciate you coming in, Robert. It's good to see him at Squad Up Summit too. Yeah, but it is crazy to see like what this has become from what it was. Um, because like I said, I definitely never pictured it going here.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, we'll get to this one in a little bit, but that same mentality is what inspired the final question I ask everybody before we do the outro.
Oh, awesome. I'm looking forward to getting the answer to that question. You know, you hinted
I was
at
gonna
it.
say, which I didn't prep her for, so
Did not.
I feel like that's the best though. I don't prep anybody for anything. I just
I
go in
know.
raw.
That's one of the things I've been debating on when it comes to this podcast that I'm going to be launching. Like, it's like how much structure do I need, and do I ask them beforehand on a couple of things? Like, for instance, I would love to know, like, what song do you put on to, like, get you in the mindset, right, that you're going to be able to conquer whatever you're facing, right? Or what
Oh, that's
book
easy.
you're reading lately. Like, those are like some of those, like, help me build a book list, help me build a Spotify playlist of kick-ass music, if you will. But there are
You
other things.
probably will like this one actually. I have an instrumental song that I play usually when I need to get like in the mood or just like you said, go conquer the world or whatever. Um, and it's not that it's pretty similar to the one I used on Instagram when I made the flyer for ours, but the girlfriend describes it as grungy western, which I thought was hilarious, but
That is
it is
great.
what it is. Take it for what it's worth.
I got it queued up. When we get off here, I'll have to go listen to it.
Yeah, that's the hour-long loop. It's really like a 3-minute song, but you'll notice it sounds like it's on an infinite loop because it is.
Nice.
Um, yeah, man, it's been an interesting year. It's been fantastic to be able to watch you go through the journey while I'm on the journey. and we're both just doing the things together. Because even right now, you texted me. So this is a perfect example of listening to that prompting when you get that little idea, that little nudge. You texted me and said, "Hey, I just took on this new role as a COO for a new investor." And I was
Yeah.
like, "All right, cool." And I was like, "Son of a bitch." I was like, "Why am I not doing that?" Like, I did that last year. Like, why don't I just do that again? And that had been on my heart for a little while. So I did the episode with Heather Grizzard 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And for those of you that know Heather, she's a sweetheart, and she is so loving and so caring. And that was a relationship I got from the first Squad Up Summit. And at the second Squad Up Summit, her and I ran the integrators table. So she was the official like moderator of the table because she was an owners club, but I was there. And so she was able to answer all the systems questions. I was able to answer all the operations and people questions.
Nice.
And so I mentioned that to her at the end of it because obviously I dropped her name to you when you asked me, who do I use for systems? And I said, I don't do any of the systems myself. I only use Chris Pod, who's
Yeah.
been a guest before, and I love Chris. And I use Heather for
Yeah.
anything. And so I told Heather, I said, yeah, I name dropped you to Emma. She mentioned she's a COO right now for somebody. I was like, I was really thinking about doing that. Heather went out and made posts in all the different owners club channels, and now I've got 3 consultation calls lined up within this week and next.
Amazing. Do you want my readiness assessment form so that you can take it?
Sure. Drop it. Let's go.
I'll send it to you in an email, and that way you have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because they're all three different. They're all three owners club. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see how that pans out. Um, one of them is a developer, which is an interesting one because it's one of the directions I've thought about going is doing more stuff with land and entitlements and zoning. Because at the end of the day, that's where there's a shit ton of money to be made. And I find it interesting. Like it's a different, I don't know. I think I'm just a glutton for punishment because I enjoy the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Like when I first joined SubTo, it was for business acquisitions and not for single family homes. So I that was how they got me in was they were like, yeah, zero down. That's this whole new thing that we're doing and blah 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 blah. They're like, but you should go through the pace method first. So I went through the pace method almost like begrudgingly.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool, I get it. Like ARV, comps, MAO, like I know what this is now. Um, but yeah, like land development is a whole different lingo
Yeah.
because there's levels to it, right? Like there's single family homes, and then there's like multifamily or commercial, and then there's development.
Right.
Like development loans aren't written on LTV, they're not written on loan to value, they're written on LTC, they're written on loan to cost.
Ooh, yeah. I can see that.
And it's usually drastically lower as far as what you'll get out of those loans because it's so speculative.
Yeah.
So that's been another cool one to kind of explore. I would be interested to do. I think that's the potential partnership right now. I'm the most interested in knowing nothing about any of the three,
Mhm.
because I also got an opportunity with Rick Sheldon to help him close on land and flip it.
Oh, sweet.
So I'm going to be exploring
Yeah.
um, both a little bit and kind of see where all these things take us.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, Heather had reached out because she's connected in the top tier TC community, and I had posted about Go High Level, and we've been trying to connect. I know that she on Tuesdays she does have an office hours. I don't have the link for that yet or the time, so I need to. My Tuesdays are already so busy, so I need to make sure that maybe that's
I
a way to go.
think it's on her website. I think it's on reiintegrator.com. I believe. So what else is big projects coming up for Emma besides, podcasts and closing this one really big deal you got?
Yeah, like those are the main big things is continuing to grow the TC squad. Um, hitting it out of the park as a, COO, and being able to rise to those occasions. So I'm having to learn go high level, in a way that, I mean, I had kind of messed around with it before. It reminds me a lot of Pipeline Pro, which I've
Mhm.
built some stuff out into, but I'm having to do a deep dive of what it can do, and integrations and automations, and trying to build that stuff in the background. So going back and being a student, right? And then I'm going to be capital raising for what I need for closing for this project that I'm on. And it's so interesting that I was in the process of capital raising because I wasn't for sure if I was going to go the route of PML gap funding for it, to acquire it, or if
Mhm.
I was going to go a DSCR route. And the DSCR route kind of won over. So I had about $1.2 million raised, and those individuals said that they had to be in the first lien position, which is now not available, right? Because the DSCR.
Mhm.
So I'm back to square one of having to capital raise.
Now find people for the second lean position.
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like I have a lot of great information to kind of back that. And the fact that I'm giving it's just a 12-month loan at a 10 to 12% ROI, right? Which is a good return. It's, you could see bigger on certain things just depending on how long you're willing to, like a shorter lend, right? Um,
Yeah.
but I've also told individuals that I'm willing to give them part equity and ownership payout while their funds are secured, so that they're getting payout in addition to their
The
RO.
12% or 10%.
Yeah, because I know that second lien position isn't as desirable, and I want
Yeah.
to do that, and offer them something in return for that. So yeah, that's a big thing for me, is actually capital raising. I got to capital raise about $800,000 to get this through, because this total purchase, it's 2 lots, 2 homes, 2 assisted living businesses, right?
Mhm.
Even with the seller carry, the total purchase price comes to $3.4 million, which is a big number for somebody starting out. And I'm just thankful that I only have to raise 800,000 of it, um, instead of the full amount. So it's
Have you
doable.
looked into fractional for that?
Yeah, so I know that I know what fractional is, and I've even helped TC through that. One of the things that I was not aware of until recently, um, was that I might need a fractional account for the money to go into before going into escrow. And that is something that I don't have set up. So when I was talking to, the DSCR lender regarding the money that the down payment that I have to bring, I
Mhm.
was like, I don't have that in my account, because usually I want to see it seasoned, right?
Mhm.
And I said, but if the money that is being brought to the table, if they have part equity ownership, then she's like, then it doesn't matter where, if it's seasoned or not. Like, it's coming from their bank account, and
Mhm.
that's seasoned, right? Um, so that's kind of what my mind was that, yeah, I don't see one person bringing $800,000. I see several people coming together fractionally, right? Um, to do that, and having them on the entity would alleviate some of that issue. And they would have to send it directly from their account into escrow. It's not going to go through a fractional account, that I hold. Any thoughts on that?
I would say maybe not put them on the entity, but in a really good operating agreement,
Yeah,
for one. Um, 2, yeah, I don't know the intricacies of the fractional, like, platform.
yeah,
Um, Stella actually reached out to me the other day and was like, "Hey, I wanted to see if you're on fractional yet." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm on it." I know, Aaron Lambert, who I just did an interview with 3 weeks ago, is using it very successfully for his co-living projects.
yeah,
So I guess it would just depend on the timeline that you have to get all that set up and, like, what that would look like. Because I don't know. I don't know how that would work. I mean, even if all the funds congregate into one account before going into escrow, I don't see why you couldn't just show the DSCR lender that it came from an equity partner's account. You
Right,
know what I mean? Like, you're not spending the money before it goes into escrow, so I don't see
right,
why you couldn't just draw the lines to connect the dots to say 100 grand came from Emma and, out of her bank account into the fractional account, which now goes into escrow.
right, right.
So I don't see why you couldn't do that, but you'd have to talk to your lenders and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And
I'd be curious. I'm thinking about scheduling a demo for fractional just so I can see how it works because it does seem like it'd be a good for capital raising efforts.
yeah, and I think I think it would definitely. I think my only surprise in that is that I, as a TC, I've had so many people are like, I will only transfer money directly to escrow, right? And then here you're asking them to transfer it into a fractional account before transferring it in. Um, and so I need to do it. I just need to be educated on why does that seem more secure or more approachable.
I
Um,
don't know that it's more secure so much as it's more user friendly
yeah,
because it's really common with the fund of funds model. So I was telling you about the RV park fund of funds that we were
yeah,
doing the raising for last year. They have a portal. And if you do want to invest with them, you deposit, like you log into their portal
mhm,
in order to deposit money. And the part of the reason for that is because they're doing multiple deals. They don't want to tell you to send money to this escrow or that escrow. Sometimes they'll split it and they'll diversify you into multiple deals.
right,
So fractional is really just a representation, I think, of what most fund to fund models are already doing.
yeah,
Um, But as far as, like, the security and the risks and the benefits and the things of that nature, that's something you probably would have to bring up directly with Stella or her team.
yeah, yeah. I'll have to pencil in some time and definitely do that because if I'm going this route, I mean, this is the first of many that I'm planning on acquiring, whether it's assisted living or homes that can be co-living because we definitely need housing, affordable housing in this area. Um, and just this last week, I put on the first regional, not regional, the first REI meetup in this area. Usually, you have to drive down to Phoenix to go to a meetup, and it was a really short, small group of people, but everybody was very passionate about co-living and um, finding affordable housing in this area. And one person in particular was like, "Man, if I would have known this was the topic of discussion, and I would have known what to expect out of this kind of event, I would have invited all these people that are movers and shakers and leaders within the Cornville, Yavapai County area." And I'm like, well, that's who we need at these because if we really want to get something done, we need to know that we can push it through and
Mhm.
that we're not going to have any issues. We need to know that the local government has, like, we have the backing of them and we know what they're wanting in the future and to partner with them. So hopefully maybe by next month our meetup will grow. So
I think it will. Meetups grow, they expand and contract, and just like podcasts, they're getting more and more difficult to market.
yeah,
Um, and the months that I don't market them well, sometimes it's just me and my partner sitting there smoking a cigar, drinking beer, and having a good time. But
you
you
know
know
what?
what? Whether it's 2 or 2 dozen of us, like, we still have a
Yeah,
good time.
that's right. That's right.
You'll have to come in town for one.
I know it's on my bucket list of things I want to do for sure.
Every 3rd Friday.
Every third Friday. I'm just gonna have to figure out, make it happen at some point.
Erica Bates just happened to be in town, so her and her husband Jason came back in January.
Oh, awesome.
That was really cool getting to talk to them about buying RV parks and, she does TC work and
Yeah,
he does or no, other way around. She does underwriting because she does all the underwriting for Vina Jetty and
yeah,
her group, but Jason is a TC.
yeah.
Yeah, they're both great people though.
They're fantastic. What do you need, Adam?
Right now, um, we did put a kind of a pause on looking for RV parks. So I'll probably get back to that eventually. I think right now what we just need help with is dispoing the deals that our No One Left Behind team's been getting because we got like three.
That's in Texas.
So
Very specifically in Texas.
yeah, those are in Texas, mostly around Houston and Houston, San Antonio. Um, we're trying to kind of stay around there, around that path to progress where you're seeing a lot of investor activity right now. So they should be easier to move. But we've got three over there we got to move. And right now I'm just picking up more COO leads because right now those have been my only two focuses. You know, we've been trying to laser down from doing four and five and six different projects to like, let me just do the things that I'm really, really good at. And then everything else I can just kind of farm out if I have to, you know?
Right, right. That makes sense.
But, you know, we're up here on the top of the hour. So one of I guess a couple of the things we talked about what's next. Um, why don't you go ahead and plug yourself? Where can people find Emma or the TC Squad or the podcast?
Yeah, so the tcsquad.com is our website. You're able to find all of our services there. Like I mentioned, we do transactional coordination, fractional operations. We have an accountant that can help with accounts payroll, receivable, payroll, all that kind of stuff. And then we just brought on somebody that is able to help with servicing for your subject to and hybrid transactions. So logging into your mortgage portal, making sure payments are happening, all that jazz. So you can find that there on the website. You can find me in Facebook, Emma Duncan. You can find me in the SubTo community, the top tier community, areas like that. And then I always like to mention Instagram. So We Talk is one handle I have. W.E.talk TALK. And then the T21 and counting is my other one, which is really my day in and day out life with my family because my oldest son has Down syndrome and T21 is kind of where we talk about individuals with other abilities and seeing him blossom as he grows and how our family just navigates life around that.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you do share all that too, because there's so many people that would rather just hide it, like recluse and go
Yeah.
back into their shell. But Emma's like, nope, I'm here. I'm doing the thing. I'm super mom. I got this.
I don't know about Supermom. I lose my mind every once in a while for sure. But
At least in front of me, you keep it together. So
I know, right? Yeah, yeah. My business partners, we have a huddle every day and we go over all of our TC files and chat. And they're like, I don't know how you do it. You haven't like yelled at your kids. And I was like, okay, well, this is technically 10 a.m. for me.
Mhm.
And you wait till 3 p.m. and then you come back and you get me on a Zoom. You'll see how I'm starting to wear down. I was like, it's just the beginning of the day. But
That's all right. The dog tried to make a cameo appearance in a speaking competition I did in Zoom the other day for the Growth Co.
yeah,
I literally was like, the only 2 minutes I get a spotlight to give my 2 minute talk, and the dog's right here
yeah, yeah, yeah.
trying to force her way in. It was too funny.
With
All right,
little boys, it's like you can be outside of my office and you can be as loud as you want and be as crazy as you want. You can even be butt naked for all I care. Just make sure you have clothes on before you walk around in front of my camera, please. Um,
yeah. You've seen Little Blondie. She comes in and makes her little cameos every now and then.
yes, she's adorable.
All right, Emma, you ready for the big question?
Big question. Hit me up.
You're sitting across the table from a brand new investor. What
Yes.
is the advice that you would give them that you wish you had?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, there is a such thing as entrepreneur flu. And every entrepreneur starts out by getting this flu, right? They capture the flu and they jump headstrong into, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm gonna succeed. And not many people realize that there is something called the death valley of entrepreneurship, and everyone has to go through it. So you have this spark and this energy now, you're just starting out. Hold on to that and remember the why and never lose sight of it, because pretty soon you're gonna hit that hard patch, and you're gonna have to choose to continue pushing forward through the death valley, and it'll be hard, but eventually you'll come out on the other end, and your business will be thriving, and you'll find it, you'll find your place. Or you'll choose to give up and turn around and say, what the hell, what was I thinking, and burn out. So hold tight to the why and remind yourself through the journey, and just keep pushing forward, right? Don't give up on yourself. um, Choose that failure is not an option, right? Just keep pushing forward, and you will climb Mount Everest. You'll get to the peak, you'll get through the Death Valley, and um, you'll look back and you'll be like, damn, like I'm a true entrepreneur, and now I'm a successful one. And I hope that I'm there to cheer you on and say, well done.
I love that. I've never heard it described as entrepreneur flu, but I know the Death Valley that you're talking of because I saw it in a diagram. The way that they put it was the four stages. So there's
Mm-hmm.
like uninformed optimism here, right?
Yeah,
And you've got informed optimism, but then you've got uninformed
lay
pessimism,
down
which
there.
is right all the way down here, like in the in and at that point you're lower than when you started, which I think is an important thing to note, right? Because now, or it's informed pess pessimism. Because now, like, you're knowledgeable, you know all the things that you didn't know, and you even know the things that if you were not ignorant to, you probably wouldn't have gotten into whatever you're doing in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
And at the end of that, at the highest of the highest peaks is informed optimism, because once you're through it, once you understand that I just had to keep pushing through, like, that stage 3, that valley, so to speak, is where everybody quits. That's where everyone falls off on. That's where the market turn kills businesses. That's where people give up, they get burned out, they jump to the next big idea, then they're all happy-go-lucky again because it's right back to, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, I'm just gonna go start a new thing,
yeah.
and then
The
they
the
reignite the spark.
the entrepreneurial flu, that specific verbiage comes from E-Myth, the book E-Myth,
Mm,
and it just talks about small business owners and being an entrepreneur, and when you decide to make that decision, and the path that you have to go through of realizing that you're not just the technician. You used to always be the technician, but now you went into business for yourself so that you didn't have to have a boss, but now you're the boss and the technician, right?
mhm.
And so you have to be able to wear many hats through that beginning stage. So he uses that, the author uses that terminology. I didn't coin it.
Yeah, Michael Gerber.
Yeah.
I do love E-Myth, and I love that a lot of those people have inspired gone on to inspire many books. Because Michael Gerber inspired Mike Michalowicz, who wrote Profit First,
Yeah.
and Profit First has inspired many, many spin-offs, just like E-Myth has many, many spin-offs.
Yeah.
Um, and it just keeps growing and growing, so I'm glad, like, and I feel like that's where we're at now, right? Like, you and I are gonna eventually have to write books.
Yeah.
Um I don't know how much of my life I should tell and shouldn't tell. I'm sure a lot of people be really mad at me,
I know,
but it'd be
right?
alright. But, by inspiring more and more new investors, that was one of the things when we were talking about leadership earlier, like, it's odd, I think, to hear that for, like, the first time. I remember the first time Pace called me a leader, and I was like, "Me? Like, nah. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know who you're talking to." Um, but, it's just one of those things that kinda comes with the territory of, like, you're uncomfortable, but you become comfortable not knowing. You just know that you need to know just enough to take the next step.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, Adam, this was fantastic. I'm gonna be wrapping it up here as well as we get ready to get off.
Yep.
I'm hearing my kiddos banging at the door. So thank you for having me on for a second time, and thanks for letting me just kind of shoot the breeze and share what I have.
Yeah, of course, dude. And guys, y'all know how we do. We do these live every weekend, so that way you can come join us. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. The only thing that we do ask is that if you get value out of this, if we made you think, we made you laugh, we made you smile, if we gave you some kind of new perspective, that you just tell a friend. So until next time, I will see everybody next week.
All right, awesome. Thank you.